Hello, Pretend Sports Nation, broadcasting on AM 577 from the peak of Old Smoky Butte. I am Sike Manders, and with me, as always, is Maul Paderos. Maul, how the hell have you been?
It has been far too long. It is so absolutely wonderful to be here with you at the peak of Old Smoky Butte, broadcasting to all the faithful NJC, FFL, and Pretend sports fans all across this geographic 10 miles.
Absolutely. I have always been one to say that I prefer radio. It's our emanations, our thoughts are leaking into the very air itself. It's, as Rush put it, a gift beyond price that's almost free, Maul.
It basically is free. I mean, AM radio is definitely free, right?
Well, there's a small cost. They let me hook it up to my trailer, but that's not really that's not really here nor there. We're here to talk about the NJC FFL and Pretend Sports, and by gum, we're gonna do it right on the air.
Yes, we are, and it has been a fantastic week, start of the season, week number 2. We have some ups, we have some downs, and we have 2 fantastic matchups to discuss today.
Absolutely. Why don't you take it away for us there, Maul?
Yeah, in the Maul's matchup this week, we have what was one of the true nail-biters of the weekend. The Knights of the King of Limbs found themselves unable to overcome the Great Wall of Mulga, falling at home 83.5 to 82. You see, the President's men were led by the surging Lamar Jackson, who scored 32 points, 15 more points than their projection, and Saquon Barkley, who burned the Bills for 21.5 more. The entirety of their roster only added an additional 30 points, but it ended up being just enough. You see, the Knights, they saw a stupendous effort from Travis Kelce, who led the charge with an outstanding 21.5 points, and that's outrageous. Carson Wentz, the quarterback, and running back Derrick Henry added 17 and 16 points respectively. But, you see, the real story ended up being whom Coach Silent Quanson left out of his starting lineup. In a matchup that came down to the slimmest of margins, had he chosen to start Rashad Penny over Stephon Diggs, Alshon Jeffrey, or Allen Robinson, it would have given the Knights their first win of the season. Instead, the old bench blues kept on a-moaning, and the Knights continued their winless streak to start the season.
You know, it's always a shame, even for a puppet like Kylan Swanson, to be so close to victory, only to have it snatched away.
Well, I mean, now that his mother, Coach Ramona Swanson, is there back in the league, wanting to reclaim her former glory, it's pretty obvious to those around the NJC FFL that Coach Kylan is just fallen far from his glory days of a championship.
Indeedly so. Speaking of falls from grace and certain unicorns, I'd like to invite everyone to gather around my surgical steel table, and let's take a gander. Oh, what is this before me? Oh, it's my scalpel. How I've missed you. It's time for Sike's Scalpel. We're going to take a look at the match between the Rainbow Unicorn Death Squad and the Guter Institute Beavers. Now, when we were doing Pretend Sports Now, I was not around. We were still watching as Pretend Sports were evolving in the Pretend sphere. However, this is a matchup between champions. The Guter Institute Beavers, I remember their reign as champions. I remember them being a strong, proud team that could do anything to win. But my God, they were absolutely crushed into pathetic, sad dust on the hooves of the Rainbow Unicorn Death Squad. Leading the particular besmashering was the New England Patriots defense, who put up a staggering 39 points. 39 points. That is a defense putting up 39 points. Absolutely unbelievable.
Devastating.
Absolutely devastating. Tyler Boyd chipped in 19, but honestly, after that 39-point just drubbing from the defense, who needs any other players? In fact, the Rainbow Unicorn Death Squad did not even need their own quarterback. Drew Brees was seen icing his knees in a rainbow tub of unicorn grease before his tragic thumb sprain while reaching for a glass of cool, refreshing lemonade. On the Guter Institute Beaver side, and honestly, there's not much I can even do to further shame Kreg Guter. It's frankly very sad. Adam Vinatieri, however, did finally reveal himself as the dustiest mummy in all of Pretend Sports with -1 points. I think perhaps it's time that somebody drove a stake through his heart. The guy's obviously done. Not much could have been done by Kreg Guter to actually pull out a win. If he had added up his bench and all of his starters, only then could he count himself as the victor in this match. But as it stood, Maul, it was just a back alley beatdown.
And that's exactly what it was, a complete and utter besmashing. And you used the perfect word to describe it. The Guter Institute Beavers now are trying to get themselves back into the mix here, but the Rainbow Unicorn Death Squad just absolutely cremated them in every possible way. And now the Rainbow Unicorn Death Squad off to a stupendous 4-0 start, while the Beavers winless on the season currently.
Absolutely. It's going to be very interesting as we get into the deeper of the season. How exactly can you come back? 0-4 is a bad place to be, and I do say that. I was a close personal friend of Bub Flipper. As you know, after he went insane and decided to rename the team the Parts Unknown Warriors from Parts Unknown. Nobody knew where they trained or where they came from, but they had a very rough start as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it's happened before. There are certain teams that have gone, 5, 6, 7 weeks into the season and without a single victory. It's not over for the Beavers, but certainly they got horned pretty devastatingly in this one.
Most certainly. Speaking of devastating, from our lofty perch on top of Old Smoky Butte, we can truly see the entire Gridiron Mall, and these past 2 weeks have been a true slaughterhouse. Welcome, listeners, to Agony on the Airwaves.
Yeah, the Agony on the Airwaves is really a place where the true warriors of pretend football are really laid to rest, and none more devastatingly than poor Ben Roethlisberger. He will not see another snap of football. I mean, in a way, it's kind of a good thing. He's never been a very mobile man. He's kind of lumbers out there like an ogre or
an iron golem, perhaps.
Right, but in no way, shape, or form would anyone have expected him to simply dislocate or injure his arm in such a way that he would be unable to play any additional football. But Ben Roethlisberger out for the rest of the season, and what a rough one! What a rough one for Mr. Roethlisberger.
Absolutely. I mean, how is he going to send dick pics with his hands so badly mangled?
It's a good point. I mean, if I recall correctly, it was his offensive linemen that were sending them for him. But he's going to need help removing his pants, and it's just not going to work out well.
Absolutely. For him. I mean, you can't hand that over to former Steelers players. Troy Polamalu's brain is oatmeal. He wouldn't even understand if you told him to take a dick pic for you.
No, you're exactly right. Yeah, him, Jerome Bettis, the bus. The only thing he's driving nowadays is a wheelchair. If I'm right, you know what I'm saying.
Oh, wow, that felt bad a little bit, but let's move on. So I talked about Drew Brees very briefly, and we did see the absolutely tragic reach for that lemonade, his canasta chair tipping over, falling to the field, all of that weight just smashing down on that vulnerable old man thumb and just spraining it to high heaven. He is going to be out for 6 weeks. 6 weeks.
It's a real shame. I mean, I would have thought that the coaching staff and the training staff of the Rainbow Unicorn Death Squad would have done a better job ensuring that their franchise quarterback would never have to reach for a cup of lemonade quite like that. But as you stated, he lost his balance. I mean, it's not very far to fall. Drew Brees is only like 5'2", but he still can't imagine what it's going to be like when he's missing those 6 weeks with that poor thumb sprain. They may have to ban lemonade from all sidelines.
Absolutely. I mean, it was a very slippery glass to begin with. I couldn't really see that. Also, his knees were all greasy from the unicorn grease. It was just a situation that set itself up for heartbreak.
Yeah, I think that the Death Squad's going to have to rethink the entire strategy of unicorn grease on the sidelines. But when you're blowing at a team like they did, I guess it's not really that relevant. But another player who is going to be out for some significant time, Trevor Siemian, will be out for the year. Now, this is not a humongous loss for Pretend Football fans that are out there. I mean, as you fantasy players know, if you started Trevor Siemian last week, that's shame on you. You made nothing but poor decisions.
Yeah, that is a real bonehead move.
But when it comes to real football, cutting-edge football news, to lose your backup quarterback and go to the third stringer, the emergency QB on the roster, oof, what an ugly one. But I tell you what, he's lucky that he still has his leg. The way that tackle looked in the game, it seemed to me that his entire foot was detached. But apparently he walked it off. So good on you.
I suppose. There is, of course, we've consulted with our world-famous medical consultant, Dr. Fung, and he does say that acting tough does make you look very cool, although you could injure yourself even worse.
Yeah, and Dr. Fung, I mean, he says that in only the most clever and clear ways that Dr. Fung can.
Oh, absolutely. He's just fantastic. I every time I talk to the guy, I feel like I learned something.
That's the absolute truth. What else have we got there in terms of on the airways of agony?
Well, we do have a howl of pain emanating from Devin Singletary. He is week to week after a particularly bad hammy sprain.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty tremendous injury, and I think it's going to make for some interesting fantasy football decisions in the NJCFFL. But Devin Singletary, he's a young player. I think he'll work his way back from this injury relatively easily. But the hamstring is pretty tricky.
That's true. It is a week-to-week injury. Sometimes you have guys who will just milk it for 3-4 weeks, sitting on your bench, just laughing at you as they ride the pine.
Yeah, this certainly would be something to see. And also another guy with some interesting week-to-week injury information is Mr. James Conner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. In the same game where Ben Roethlisberger was taken out and maimed and lost all function of his arm and his bowels, James Conner also suffered a knee injury, and he will miss potentially some time. They're still calling him questionable, but anytime you're messing with the knees and these running backs, they all turn into pudding later in life. So no need to rush him back if they don't have to.
Most certainly. I mean, who can recall? It's just, you just see running backs crawling around without use of their legs. I mean, it's great when you see them moving around like that. They can tow things with their teeth. They actually become very useful members of society.
Well, they continue to be productive, but they at times they seem rather grovelly, drool-ridden, and no one really wants to see that.
That is true. That is true. Frank Gore eventually, if put into a servile role, will eventually bite someone. We just know that as Bible fact.
I mean, I believe, if the memory serves me correctly, he's bitten someone already this year.
My God. Well, hopefully they won't be out as long as Terrell Williams, who is dealing with a hip pointer. He is going to be out for 1 to 3 weeks. Really banged up against the Chiefs there.
Yeah, Terrell Williams, a very talented wide receiver, had a lot of upside. People really excited about what he was going to bring to the table, especially with the insane Antonio Brown no longer being in Oakland. But 1 to 3 weeks is a long time to miss. That's basically a quarter of the pretend football season. It doesn't look good for Terrell Williams owners out there.
Absolutely. I mean, losing a wide receiver is just one of those painful moments. They have such huge upsides, and without that reassuring cushion to lull yourself into a solid sleep at the end of a day, it can be pretty rough.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some other stars get injured and have to go on injured reserve. Terrell Williams luckily doesn't suffer the fate of one Devin Funchess. But I'll tell you, it will be interesting to see how he returns and what kind of skill level he brings back to the table. Another player who suffered a pretty gruesome injury was the tight end David Njoku. Landed square on his head, was concussed. I understand that he could not even say his own name to the coaching staff. I think he's going to miss some significant time with that concussion.
I don't know. I might have to maybe disagree with you on that one. His name is difficult to say under the best of circumstances. And honestly, I probably would have trouble saying my own name if I just smashed headfirst into the turf and my name was Njoku.
I suppose that's a fair critique, but I mean, he's been saying it his whole life. It's not like we're trying to say, TJ, who's your mama the first time.
That is true, I suppose. Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Unlike what the owners of Michael Gallup will be doing, he is going to be out 2 to 4 weeks after a left knee meniscus tear. Ouch!
Yeah, that one's a rough one. Dallas Cowboy wide receiver going to miss some time there with that meniscus tear. The Cowboys have been on a really good roll, but I think they're going to miss this guy.
Absolutely. Second-year breakout. He's just he's got real pretend sports potential. And to see that delayed 2 to 4 weeks is a real heartbreak for his owners. Absolutely.
Yeah, but pretend football owners everywhere were really excited. You're right about Gallup. They were expecting really big things out of him this year. But, 4 weeks, up to 4 weeks is an awfully long time to be without one of your star wide receivers. And I expect him to hit the waiver wire in a lot of leagues.
Absolutely. Or the old injured reserve list.
That's right, the old injured reserve. So, Sike, looking back on the first couple of weeks of this season, what have been your takeaways? What have you learned so far this year?
Well, so far there's been a lot of changes. There's a lot of new players and a lot of switch-ups. And a lot of the times, you have to be savvy enough to see those changes coming, see how those players are adapting to their new roles in their new teams. Because if you don't, and if you keep your eye and your brain in the past, when you look at, say, a Deshaun Jackson or or an Amari Cooper, or, any of these guys, if you look at their stats in the past and you try to play them as they would have played in 2018 or 2017 or 2016, you're just asking for heartache.
Yeah, that's a really solid takeaway, and I think that you're absolutely right. The stars have been fantastic this year. Patrick Mahomes has been fantastic. He's currently leading the frickin' Luxacs to a remarkable 4-0 start in the Dinosaurs division. The Rainbow Unicorn Death Squad also undefeated in that Death of the Dinosaurs division. We got the South Sharksville Gravy Lace coach Mike Guter. He's got to be very excited about what his team has been able to do so far this year. They're undefeated for the season. The Lakehurst Dirigibles, Coach Paul Medeiros, doing what he can to hold it all together. They are also undefeated. And I did wanted to bring up to everyone out there, I know that there's a lot of chatter here in the Pretend sports world about the Catskill Cleavers, our reigning champion. I just want everyone to know they did go 0-2 in week 1. They won their last 2, but they did start the season 0-2. Maybe there are some cracks in that impenetrable armor there of Coach Joe Pfeiffer.
I don't know. That's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, and Coach Joe Pfeiffer has certainly climbed to that top, and he is certainly rocking out with bagpipes and Angus Young and doing that duck walk that he does.
Yeah, that very weird duck walk.
I hate it.
What is that about? I hate it too. But then again, we hate everything he does.
Absolutely. Most certainly. I mean, I think the Cleavers are fantastic.
You're the only one.
Well, our differences aside, Maul, I think it's time that we ease down the power here on top of Old Smoky Butte and let these airwaves just absorb all the juicy information that we've just punched out to them. I'd like to just revive an old tradition. These past 2 weeks, Maul, did you have any words that really rang true to you?
Yeah, I think that for me, the thing that's really running through is tradition.
Tradition. Certainly one to meditate on. So from all of us here at PSBN on AM radio, oh so high,
577,
top Old Smoky Butte, this has been Pretend Football Now.